Welcome to the Illuminated Path podcast. I'm your host, Liv, founder of Eno Wellness Collective. My wellness journey started with yoga, which led me down the path of exploring healing modalities like meditation, breathwork, sound healing, mindset work, and so much more. This exploration inspired my mission to help others find what lights them up. Get comfortable and curious as we learn from experts, teachers, and creators who are lighting up their communities and living an inspired, expansive life. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Illuminated Path podcast. I'm your host, Liv. If you're tuning back in, welcome back. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. I started this podcast just this year in 2024, really with the mission and the hope to bring conversations to you all around holistic health and wellness, and to really expand and hopefully learn together more about all the different amazing modalities that there are out there for a more mindful life, for a more intentional life. And so this topic that we're going to be diving into today, specifically around breath work, was something that I remember putting on my list of conversations I wanted to have when I first started the podcast. It is a modality that's definitely changed my life, and I've witnessed change other people's life in so many ways. And so I'm really excited to bring this to you today from Eric Rosso, who is based out in Hawaii. So Eric has been teaching yoga since 2013, and he received his 200 hour back in 2015 and is now one of the co-owners of the Yoga Room Hawaii. So if you're in Hawaii, go check them out. Eric is now facilitating these amazing breathwork sessions that use breath, that use mindfulness, that use even the silent disco headphones so that you can really be in your own experience. And it's been really awesome to connect with him and then to bring his story to you all today. So Eric truly believes yoga can help all individuals move towards a more meaningful, balanced, and a happier life, also through breathwork. So alongside yoga, he facilitates, as I mentioned, these breathwork sessions, both for groups as well as individuals. And in an hour and a half session, he can bring you greater peace, reduce levels of stress, give you more energy, help you sleep better, move stuck energy, but most of all, get you into a subconscious state where you'll then be able to really have these aha moments and be able to solve problems that sometimes we can't do in a conscious state. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. I will link all of his information in the show notes if you want to connect with him and explore breathwork with Eric. So let's go ahead and dive in. So welcome to the podcast, Eric.
Aloha.
I'm excited to hear about your story today, dive into all things breathwork and meditation and all of the amazing work that you're doing out in Hawaii. So I would love for us just to take it back to your early days. I was reading a little bit about you before our interview, and I know that you have a really wide range of things that have been in your background, from modeling, real estate, advertising, and then now yoga and breathwork. So would love to hear a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are now.
Where do I start? I grew up on the East Coast of United States in Boston. Went to an all-boy Catholic high school taught by the Jesuits. I went there. It was 25 miles from my house just to play football. That was the dream. I wanted to go and be a big American football player. But I also wanted to go into an Ivy League school. So I ended up, fulfilling my dreams, and I went to Brown University, where I played football there. If I was good enough, I could go pro. If not, I have something good to fall back on. I got a job right after I graduated for a Fortune 500 company, worked there for 2 years, and basically got a promotion, and then I quit my job. My parents were pissed. They're going, "What are you going to do?" And I just got a one-way ticket to Paris, and I traveled all around Europe and Southeast Asia. And about 7 months later, I came to Hawaii, and I never left. Hawaii is like the first thing I did as I got off the plane. And I said, "Why does everybody look like me?" And it was wonderful. I'm half Chinese and half Haole or half Caucasian, and I actually have 11% Black based off of my Ancestry.com, and then from there I just got into real estate, went over into broadcast TV sales. I worked for the NBC affiliate. I was always involved with athletics, so I started teaching spin cycle classes, and then I took my very first yoga class, and never left it. And then I started teaching over at a place called Core Power Yoga, which is really big in there's something like 180 studios or 200 studios in the United States. Did that for 10 years. And then in October of 2020, in 2015, I started a yoga magazine, and I did that for 5 years, and all the magazines were in all the yoga studios. So I got to know all the yoga studio owners. And then the pandemic hit, and what happened was that magazine went debunked. I mean, couldn't do anything with that. And an opportunity came up because one of the yoga owners called me and says, "Hey, I need to sell. I don't think that I can do this." And I rounded up some partners, and we started Yoga Room Hawaii in October 2020, and we did everything by Zoom because the whole island was shut down. And now we're 3.5 years later, Honolulu Magazine named us the top yoga studio on Oahu, and we have 750 members. It's doing quite well. It's a hot yoga studio, and I'm very proud of that.
Wow. I didn't realize how many different chapters and seasons you've had in different places, even saying like, oh, I went to Paris and traveled around Europe, and then I came to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so Hawaii is home for you now. Are you the sort of home base there?
Hawaii's been home for me since 1987. And I'm going into this wellness field. So I was down in Costa Rica, and I did a 7-day ayahuasca retreat at a place called Rhythmia. And there was 4 nights of ayahuasca, 3 nights of breath work. Now I've done breath work like maybe 3 times before. Nothing ever happened. And when I was down there, the way they did this breath work class, I had such a cathartic experience. You know how when you're crying and you can't speak and you can't breathe? I mean, I was crying that hard. And so I said, I own a yoga studio. I can bring this back. So I came back to Hawaii, got certified by John Paul Crimi. I got certified in hypno breathwork just recently, about 5 months ago, through Francesca Simpa, and had been doing breathwork pretty much regularly once or twice a month since 2021. And I started with 8 people in the room, and it's just grown. And now I get 65 people in the room, and I put it on once or twice a month, and it's fantastic.
Yes, I've seen some photos or videos of like what your setup is there, right? You have the headphones, and it's like, oh yeah, it looks incredible. And I actually have heard of Rhythmia as well in Costa Rica. So it sounds like that was definitely a piece of that sparked like a new path, experiencing breathwork in that way and being like, I gotta bring it back. So for those people who might be listening that are like, well, what is breathwork? Is that just breathing? What's hypno breathwork? Like, could you give us a little like high level, what is breathwork?
There's a lot of types of breathwork. Okay. I think Wim Hof has done a lot to expose breathwork, and there's his way. There's the pranayama breathing that is done from yoga from India 2,000 years ago, where you're holding one nose and holding the other. That's breath work. Kundalini is a form of breath work. Holotropic breath work. There's a lot of different types of breath work. And I always say they all work. You just got to find one that works for you. And I do this breath work similar to, it's like a holotropic breath work, but there's a lot of different things that I bring into the picture. And it's even morphed a little bit since I went to Costa Rica. But breath work will give you more energy. It will oxygenate your body. It'll help you sleep well. Oxygenating your body, it'll alkaline your body. And diseases have a hard time getting into your system when your body is alkaline. You can find a lot of water that is alkaline, things like that. I had a personal experience. My wife was diagnosed in 2004 with cancer. And at the time, her doctor said, "Oh, alkaline your body." And you get these pH strips where you can pee on it. If it turns purple, your body is alkaline. If it stays yellow, it means your body is acidic. And we would start eating the same things and drinking the same stuff. And she would pee on it because she had cancer. It was yellow. I would pee on it. It would be bright purple. So I saw how, alkalining your body is an important thing. Anyway, Steph passed away in 2012. But the point here is breath work it can alkaline your body, and that's a good thing. But most important, what I go for in the breathwork class is breathwork has the ability for you to go into your subconscious. And when you go into your subconscious, you can solve so many issues that your mind can't solve consciously. So many people have a cathartic experience. And of course, in this breathwork class, you're going to get emotional. And it's called moving stuck energy. If you ever seen a dog, if a dog isn't, if you're driving down the road and a dog's in the room, you honk the horn and that dog freaks out, okay? But if you ever watch that dog about maybe 5-6 minutes later, that dog will shake. You'll see the shake in this dog. And that dog is releasing whatever the trauma it just faced. Human beings don't do that. We have a trauma and we hold it. And it's stored and we think about it, and we have this loop video in our head that we keep playing over and over again. And we start holding our emotions and our traumas within our body. That's one of the reasons why we go get massages, because we're under a lot of stress. Oh, give me some massage here. And those are somatic symptoms that will come out. Breathwork has the ability to release those emotions and move those emotions. And so those are the benefits to breathwork.
I was just, it had me thinking of even my first breathwork experience, which was in LA, like when I was just out of college. I found a studio that had breathwork sessions. Actually, my partner at the time decided to go through a breathwork facilitator training. So he became a breathwork guide, and he would guide, at the time we were like in our very early 20s, like he would be guiding this group, his friends, and just getting people together and just witnessing how emotional it was for a lot of people, how there would be cries and there would be, people just releasing it was at the time I didn't really understand like fully, the power of it, because we were pretty young at the time. But now that I think back on it, I'm like, wow, that was pretty powerful, that it all happened just from gathering this, creating a safe space, creating the right environment, and allowing people to like let whatever happens come up. So I wanted to ask you about, that Costa Rica experience. So you said you were crying and you were like really in it. Is there something, I guess, about that experience in particular that any sort of aha moments or realizations that came from releasing that emotion in that way?
So the purpose of going to Costa Rica and trying to do an ayahuasca experience is I really wanted to visit my wife that passed away. I mean, she was the reason what brought me there. There were so many of these mediums out there, more so than coincidences. I would say about 5 that came up to me saying, "Oh, your wife came to me in a dream." And I go, "Oh, okay. Well, she has this to tell you." And she's telling me, like, "Well, how come she doesn't come to me?" So I just felt as though my antennas into the spiritual world through that veil was short, and I needed to elongate them, and maybe going down and doing an ayahuasca experience was the thing to do. So I almost have my Steph, my wife, my late wife, to thank, to bringing this back. So when I was down there, we did connect, and we connected in a very special way. And I think that was the purpose of just being able to see her, meet with her, having these conversations, and peeling back the onion and finding out what are the things that I didn't see during that time. Because anybody that gets cancer, especially for 9 years, there's a lot that goes on. So for me, it was really about, I was in my head and this I really felt with my heart, and I think I felt what she was feeling, and that's something that didn't come to me. So, but in breathwork, yeah, you're going to get people that cry, you're going to get people that laugh, because laughter is an emotion, but so is anger. There's a chart where courage is right in the middle, and all the way down at the bottom is guilt, shame, and at the top is joy and enlightenment. And about 3 notches down from courage is anger. So anger is a good thing, and it means you're coming up the ladder, right? And I expect, I've had angry people that get angry, and that's also another emotion that you need to move if you're feeling it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That I remember doing a breathwork session, and the facilitator at the time was basically told us like scream, right? Like it was a big room. I want to say there were like 100 people in there, but it was like there was that emotion of anger coming up, and they're like the guide was like, yeah, make little fists with your hands and just like let it out whenever you need to. That was such an intense experience just to hear 100 people like, yeah, yell from that place of, like, letting it go and releasing
Yeah.
it.
I got the silent disco headsets, and that
Yeah.
helps so you can stay on your journey. You can still hear other people have
Yeah.
experiences, but
I would love to do that with the silent disco headphones. I think that's such a nice like, added layer of, like, okay, I'm gonna be in my zone for sure. So you went from when you came back from Costa Rica, came back to your studio, you said you started to bring breath work into it. And it sounds like, I mean, Yoga Room Hawaii sounds like it was already buzzing and booming. You have members, you have community. So when you decided to bring this back and start those early breathwork sessions, how was that experience? Like, did you start, doing it in your yoga classes, or did you have just kind of standalone sessions? What was like the introduction like to your community?
I mean, I think the first thing I did was like, what the hell is going on? I was a chemistry major at Brown, and I just like, what was going on in the brain, and what was written about it. And, just also want to share that there's a scientific phrase called the default mode network. The default mode network starts at the prefrontal cortex and goes right over here. So it's this mohawk that's in your brain. And that is on 24/7. So if I put electrodes to your brain connected to a computer and I just see a silhouette, this would be all lit up. And when you go into breath work, what ends up happening is this starts to dull and goes to sleep. So you'll start seeing this start to get dark. And then other parts of your brain will start to light up, and that's talking to each other. And that is your subconscious. And that is really what's happening. So the first thing I did when I got back was like really research like what's going on. And then I got certified before I taught. So then I just said, okay, let's give it a shot. And I put my playlist together. I put about what I want to do, how am I going to frame the class? Because there's so many things that happen. Did you get technique at all?
I did get that at the end, like, or I noticed my hands were like this.
Yeah. And I tell people that they're going to get this technique. I can do breath work all day long, and I never get technique. But there are people that get technique instantly. And if I didn't frame the class, people would just like, this is crazy. They're going to walk out. They're not going to know about it. So you got to share with them that they could experience this technique, but keep in mind it'll go away when the breath work is over. And there's a lot of other things that could happen, like I get really cold when I do breath work. So I got to make sure I have a blanket. Some people get really hot. I've had 2 people together. One person has a shirt off, they're sweating, and the other person has a blanket and they're shivering. That everybody is going to be different. Some people are floating around the room. Some people are stuck to the ground. It is so different, and every experience is different.
Yeah, I imagine that as seeing like the range of people that come in and then the range of experience. And then as a teacher, I'm sure people come up to you after and like either want to share or just see like, here's what I saw, here's what came up for me. So what was that, because as obviously you were teaching before in yoga, but breathwork being kind of on the newer end of what you offer, like what were some of those early students or even your students now? Like what do they share with you about their experience that stands out?
So after a yoga class, after I teach a class, everybody's going, great class, it's great. You never like stop the class and say, hey, how did this class work? Tell me what came up. So after every breathwork class, this is my favorite part of the class. I open the mic and I ask people to share their experience. And the stuff that I get is crazy. Obviously, people see geometrical shapes and colors, which is wonderful. They talk about the physical body of what they were doing. Some of them are floating around the room. But then you start seeing people, and I get this a lot. People they connect to their younger self and their older self. For some reason, they meet their older self or younger self, and they have some kind of experience. And for me, this always comes back to self-worth, because what ends up happening, and usually when they have these meetings with their older self or younger self, the older self or the younger self, they're like, you're going to be fine. And to me, that's the best. It's you telling you're going to be okay versus some external force or therapist saying you're going to be fine. And to me, that's the best. They're walking away so high. And self-worth is a big one, and I always say this: self-worth is the eternal sense of being enough. And self-worth is different from self-esteem. Self-esteem is exterior, self-worth is interior. And you can only go as high as your highest level of self-worth. So you can, in terms of money, you can only have as much money as what you feel you're worthy of. Same with relationships. You can never have a better relationship than what you think that you are worthy of. And the only way that anybody can really break that glass ceiling is to sit with their traumas and sit with the boogeyman and sit with all those things that they had when they were younger. So, and a lot of times it's usually 7 years and younger, those are where a lot of the trauma happens. And you don't realize how much of that you carry into your adult life, in your relationships, or even how you walk and feel about yourself. And until you can unravel that, and it's one of the reasons why I love breathwork so much, as well as the yoga room, because people know that they're working on something. They come in there going, something is off. I need to find that. And they're searching for answers. And I always say that there's no magic wand that's going to just, boom, you're going to be better. But what breathwork is, what yoga is a tool. And that's all it is. And it can help you. And what's going to be that magic wand is this backpack of all these tools that you throw in that backpack that you can bring out when you're feeling, trauma or triggered. I think, there's so many different things that you can do. Obviously there's therapy, but walks in nature, dancing is a form of letting go and can make you feel wonderful, and a tool is something that can change your state in real time, that can give you an opportunity to do something about it. And that's what a tool is. And that's what I say, that breathwork is just a tool.
It is such a powerful tool, like combining that with the lessons that come through being on your yoga mat, meditation, clearing the mind, like you said, nature. As you were speaking, I was just thinking, wow, this all started for you through a cycling class, and then finding yoga, and then coming in, and finding all these tools in your toolkit. So how have you, I know you mentioned a couple of teachers, but what has your journey been in terms of adding these tools into your own toolkit, and like sort of switching from student to teacher and holding that space?
Well, everybody you see is walking around with something, and I am definitely not perfect in any way, but the things that I learn, I have to apply to myself, and I seek therapy, and I walk the walk. You'll see me in class taking yoga classes, and sure, I'm trying. And I went to Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you've heard of him,
Yes.
but he's
Yes, I have.
I just love this guy. He brings the science to the woo-woo, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Love him. I love it. One of the things he said, it was like this aha moment, was, what am I trying to do in my life before I expire? Obviously, you've heard, I want to be my truest self. But he talked about cohesive wholeness in every part of your life. wholeness, and it's a constant journey. And if we can be whole in, our environment, you think about the environment you live. Do you like where you live? I mean, do you like your spirituality? Do you like, are you growing in the areas of wealth, health, and all these areas? And this is what we're trying to do. And I always say this, is that there are people that I know that are transforming all the time. And let's just say they drink a lot, but they go to their watering hole and they have all their friends and they just love them. But they are not somebody. This belonging is not where they want to be. They need to get out of that. And a lot of people, when you make that transition, people that are at that watering hole are going, "What are you doing? This is wonderful." But they know, that drinking is definitely not a good thing. So in that transition, there's going to be a sense of loneliness. And no matter what you do, every situation is going to be like that when you're making a change. But you have to keep striving. And once you find that area that you say, "This is my place for belonging," you're in a better crowd. And longevity, right?
How do you think that, as you've created Yoga Room Hawaii, in terms of cultivating that community and bringing people into your space, like how have you cultivated that sense of like belonging and even safety when you have to do something like breath work, having that space? Like what do you think is sort of attributed to, to the growth and expansion of this space that you've created?
That's a good question. And like, what makes us a different yoga studio than others? And I keep coming back with the vibe that we've created. All of our owners, we really, really practice that on a daily level, and we bring that out into the community. I mean, it could be the little things. I mean, remember, it's like you go to some yoga studios, it's like no talking before I get into my class. Everybody is chattering all over the place. We don't have any of those signs, that says quiet. Everybody's yapping away, and people meet people. They're meeting like-minded people, and we want that. So to me, that's the difference, is the vibe, and what all of our owners are really striving to share, and we send that out to our teachers, to try not to be too much in a box and be real.
I love that. Love that. And, I know most people that are teachers, they're kind of on this forever student. They're always a student as well, right? You're always learning something new. You're always bringing new things into the mix. And I've been interviewing so many people that are teachers, and they're always learning something new. So I know breath work is kind of your focus right now, but what other topics or people, teachers, like what else is sort of pulling at your heartstrings right now to learn and dive into?
Good question. I think, I kind of wound down in 2023 my advertising agency. I was so happy that all of my employees, landed pretty well. Like I said to some of my clients, I'm not going to do this anymore, and some of them took my employees. So I feel really good about that. But going into the wellness industry and staying into this wellness industry, I would like to start to put on retreats, like you're doing, and go in that direction. Expanding my skill sets. I mean, I go on a lot of these retreats. Like I said, I went to Dr. Joe Dispenza, been to Eckhart Tolle. I've been to, quite a few of these things, and I want to do more and just be a sponge and learn more. And every single time you learn something, you can feed it back into the classes that you teach, and even in breathwork.
Yeah, I was going to ask you when you said Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you had, I know that he does retreats, so that's awesome that you're able to do that and soak in these amazing experiences. And, being in Hawaii, it's always a trip somewhere, but that's awesome to be able to, or did he come to Hawaii?
No, I went down to Cancun and saw him. Eckhart Tolle came to Maui, so and that was great. And everybody's different, but what I find is that we're all teaching, a lot of the same things, but it's how they teach it. And because everybody wants to be at peace, everybody wants to have a wonderful life, and sometimes people resonate better with one person than another, and I obviously have my people who resonate with me, but there's maybe some people that take my classes like, I don't like that guy. I don't know. I hope not, but like it does happen, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, everyone. I always even tell, I teach a beginner yoga series here, and I always tell my students at the end of that, I'm like, go try other teachers, right? Go explore, like find the one, find the person or find the studio or find the space that like really you connect with, because that's going to help,
Yes.
build your practice and experiment, try different styles, like get outside of your comfort zone, especially when you're trying to find it. So, um,
Yeah.
for those people who might be listening and they're like, okay, breathwork sounds interesting, but I don't know if I'm quite ready for an in-person, or maybe, for example, they might be living in a place where where it doesn't exist, right? What would you say to someone who like wants to start exploring breathwork a little bit, but doesn't know where to even start?
There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. I'm going to start to grow the breath work, and I'm working on a website right now, and that's to come. So, as I wound down my career in advertising, I'm going to wound up the career in wellness, in breath work, and things like that. So that's to come. But yeah, I mean, I would try a Wim Hof. You know, do a breath work with Wim Hof and see what they think. Like I do something that's very different. I do this breath work. He does like 3 minutes of breath, and then he hold your breath on your exhale, and he does that a few times, which I think is wonderful, and you can get something out of it. But when I do my breath work, I do it for 30 minutes, and you think that 30 minutes will go by really slow. It'll go by like that. I've actually, when I was in Bali last May, I did an hour and a half breath work, which is super long. And, like I said, they all work. I do mine out of my mouth. You're breathing in and out through your mouth only. Other people do breath work through the nose and the mouth, and the nose or the nose. I mean, yoga is all breathing through the nose, to engage your Uddiyana and Mula Bandha, engaging the core lock. You're breathing in, engaging your core, you're breathing out through your nose. Breath work is the exact opposite. When you breathe in, your belly expands. That's how I teach that. And then I do a breath hold as long as they can on the inhale at the end of the breath work. So, yeah.
You mentioned that you had your playlist too, and I've experienced breathwork sessions with music, right, and with the playlist. I'm curious just how you go about creating the musical element of breathwork. Like, what kind of songs do you choose? Like, how do you choose how am I going to guide this with music? Because music is such a powerful part of any experience. So I would love to know how you approach that.
So the breath is the engine to get you to take off. So my analogy that I say in class is, and I date myself, if anybody's ever seen Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox, and in that movie, that DeLorean had to go down that tar strip 88 miles an hour before it snapped and went to the future or went back to the future. That's my analogy. Going down that tar pit, that runway, is the breath, and you really have to do it. I've had so many people come to my class and not give it at all because they were too timid, and they didn't go into it. And they come back and they go, "Oh, I'm going to do it now. Now that I know what's going on, I'm going to really breathe." And they have this great experience. But if they don't do the breath, they're not going to have the experience that they could have. So I always say that breath is really important, especially in the beginning. So my music is real high energy in the beginning. It's really to get you breathing. And then obviously as we get towards the end, it tapers down a little bit in tempo, but it's still up. And then in the breath hold, we go into really calm music. And, so there is this, crescendo, it starts off high and then it kind of goes down. And then it really, as you're holding your breath, that's when you feel. We also do, which I do, well, I learned in Costa Rica, I call it toning. We tone 3 times during this 30-minute breath work. And toning is slapping the ground and yelling at the top of your lungs. So in the movie 300, the Spartans used to tone as they went to war and when they come back, and that's what they told me down there. And when they saw that, I said, "No, what? This is the haka. This is what the Polynesians did. They do that before they go to war to show their power. That's all it is. It's had so many different names throughout history, but we call it toning, and we tone. And it, someone came up to me and said, "Oh, you're giving me permission to be angry," which is great. So
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I think that the ability to get out of your mind, get into the breath, and like you said, just kind of like take flight, can have like the using all the senses, or using like sound especially, can be so powerful. And I'm just imagining everyone with their silent disco headphones and their little eye cover, and they're like really into, gosh, I would love to experience one of your breathwork sessions. Sounds incredible. You mentioned retreats as one of your next, you would love to do that as a next step. But when you think about future, what you envision for yourself, where do you envision going from here in your wellness, journey? What do you sort of envision for yourself?
Gosh, I mean, I could teach yoga forever. And, I'm 60 years old. So it's not like I'm 30 and I'm thinking about my career. I'm pretty much stopping my career and finding something else. But I'm looking to continue the wellness and do the retreats, and my skill sets that I can teach yin, I can teach regular yoga, I can teach breath work. In this retreat, I want to bring cold plunges. Like I have portable cold plunges that people can do, and there's so many different modalities out there that you can do. Just simple Dharma talks of finding out where they want to go, and what are the obstacles that they're faced with. I can use that wisdom to help in any way I can.
You mentioned the word earlier, longevity, and knowing that you're 60 and you are thriving, you are literally glowing. So what are your secrets for aging gracefully, being able to, yeah, have that longevity, not only physically, but just mindset wise? What have you found helpful?
That's a good one. It's a good question. So yeah, I mean, social drinker. I think alcohol is abused is wrong. It's gonna age you. I think stress is a big one. I mean, being stress free, and this is where yoga and breath work and meditation comes into play, and living that life. And we're all creatures of habit. I remember at the Honolulu club, it was a very hoity-toity, high-end fitness center, and they're not going to get the pump monkeys of the guys that are in 20s, or people going in there taking selfies and things like that. So usually it's the doctor that comes in and says to somebody that's in their 40 to 60, saying that your test came back, you've got high blood pressure, you have hardening of the arteries, you have high cholesterol, yada yada yada. And he says you can do one of two things. You can either take this pill, which will still reduce your life, but that will put all your heart in under control, or you can change your diet. You can go to a gym, you can get diet and exercise, get more fit. And of course, 95% of the people will take that pill. And that is the problem. It's hard to make these changes. So what I'd like to try to do is be able to be that conduit of, let's do something to try to make that change. Let's see if we can get to that level. And that's what I'm always looking for is, I can't be talking all this yoga stuff or breathwork stuff to a person that has no idea, and just trying to be in the shoes of somebody that wants to make that change but doesn't really know how.
Yeah, I mean, I outside of teaching yoga, I'm also a health coach, and I see that a lot with my clients is just how do I change my lifestyle, and also how can I be proactive about it versus getting to a point where I'm sick and I'm trying to fix something because the doctor, like you said, I have so many students even come to yoga that are like, oh yeah, my doctor told me to go to yoga, or my therapist told me to go to yoga, or, I'm here because someone told me like it's time to make a change. It's a tool that I want to add. But it is, yeah, so many people are searching for how do I find that wholeness, like you mentioned earlier too.
Yeah, very important. It's a good word, and I have to thank Dr. Joe for that. It's like, what is it that you're trying to do? And then of course I have a cold plunge, and I try to cold plunge 11 minutes a week. And, cause there's a lot of studies. I mean, when I was in football, I go into the trainer's room, there's always going to be an ice bath, of something. And there's so much literature coming up about cold plunges. And one of them is the age reversal, or slowing down the aging process. So doing whatever you can to try to be as healthy as you can. I mean, obviously eating is what you put in your mouth is very important too. And that's hard to change. I still a meat eater, by the way.
I would love to know what your, at this like sort of season in your life, what is your wellness mantra right now? It could be your mantra, or even, yeah, like the phrase, the theme that's been coming up for you lately of like, this encompasses it.
Joy. you know and how do you create that joy? Is you stay in the moment. You're not looking at the phone all the time, and you're not with somebody. You're really present. And Dr. Joe says it so eloquently, is that nothing happens in the known. And there's everybody, the known is the past, and people live in this cyclical loop video. And he talks about this predictable future, is that you get up in the morning, you know exactly where the coffee is, you towel off the same way, you go to work the same way, you sit in your cubicle and you do the same things every single day. It's predictable. He says nothing happens there. And the only place that there is an unknown is in the present moment. And it's very hard for people to stay in that present moment. And that is something that I'm trying to cultivate for myself, and to try to cultivate for the people that go to yoga. And I believe that when you are doing breath work, you are in that present moment. It gets you into this altered brainwave activity. I don't know if you know anything about the beta brainwave activity versus alpha and theta.
Yeah.
Beta brainwave there's three types of beta. There's low, medium, and high. And high beta is fight or flight. And that is not a good place to be. And so many people are living in that today. They think that they're being pounced on a saber-toothed tiger, and they are in this fight, run, hide, or fight, or fawn. And cortisol, there's so many papers about when cortisol comes into your body, for only a short period of time, it's good. Eyes dilate, and it's bad for your system. It's just really bad to have cortisol in your system 24/7. And when you are in this fight or flight, your body is saying don't eat. That's why people have all these gut issues. It's also saying don't sleep, because you're in a fight or flight mode. That's why people have sleep issues. It confuses your brain. You cannot think clearly. So Dr. Joe says, if you really want to solve problems, be in a present moment. Solve them after a meditation, after a yoga class, because you're in an altered state. You're in alpha and theta. And alpha and theta is simply that state when you're driving down the road and you're just starting to daydream. It's a great little state. It's like, oh, I missed my exit. That's a good place to be. So, and even you think about religion. How many times have I heard? I went to an all-boy Catholic high school, and I kind of detached myself from that. But going into religion, when someone says, "Oh, let me pray on it," it's a form of meditation. It's getting into that getting into that alpha and theta state to make good choices. And so you should never be making these choices when you're angry and things like that. You should go do a yoga class, go running, go take a walk in nature, and then sit and try to solve those problems that you have.
That's such good advice. And I hear you. I went to an all-girls Catholic school, so and here we are.
No.
Love it. So I would love to. So I'm closing out every conversation with one question, which is, what is lighting you up these days?
Gosh, you know, because I just retired, kind of like I downsized my advertising agency, which I've been doing for the last 29, 30 years, and starting up this wellness side. That is my spark in the morning, and getting up and going to the yoga room and doing that. That lights up my life right now, and everything is to create joy in my life. We are only on this earth for a very short time, and if I can wake up and live in the present moment, anybody that comes into my life, to really look at them and be with them in this moment, that's the thing to do, because I'm picking and choosing who I want to be in my life, and that's important. They and I saw this in a TED talk, and I forget the lady's name, but there are 4 pillars for a stronger meaning of life. And the first pillar is just, belonging, is who's your tribe. And that's so important, to find people that you are close with, that you resonate with, and you can vibe with. That's very important. The second pillar is purpose, and purpose changes over time. There was a time when my kids were really little, and my purpose was to raise them. Well, they've grown up and they're all out of the house. Purposes change. So my purpose right now is to try to, really try to build this wellness side of what I'm trying to do. So that's my purpose. I mean, the third one is spirituality, and it's transcendence. It's just something that is higher than us, whatever that is. And the fourth one, which I think is the most important one, is your story. It's your elevator pitch. It's what are you telling yourself? And how many people that I talk to all the time, and again, it goes back to self-worth, and they're saying negative things to yourself. And I say this in my yoga class. It's like, if somebody was talking to you the way you talk to yourself, would you hit them or would you hug them? And I think that's so
good.
such a good story. Is like, people, you have to catch yourself, talking negatively to yourself. Lent is going on right now. And many years when I was going to church a lot in high school, I gave up swearing. And I remember the first week of Lent, I was swearing and I had no idea I was swearing. But I started catching myself. And you can cultivate, if you're saying negative things to yourself in your head, in that 1-minute elevator pitch, that story that you talked about who you are, you got to stop it. And you got to create a really good story. And then you have to live that story out. And then that story will change over time, because you're going to change over time. I love it.
Amazing. Thank you. What a beautiful way to end, and such a powerful message. I'm like nodding the whole time. If anyone's watching, we do the video episodes. I'm like, yes, yes, yes to everything that you're saying. So thank you for being open to this. I know I reached out to you. I was like, I'm just going to reach out and see if he's open to hopping on a podcast. I so appreciate it. I think the, wellness community here on Guam and beyond, whoever's listening, will be very inspired by your journey. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. You can find me at Eric Rosso on Instagram if you want to follow me and see my journey. And if you ever want to come to Hawaii and take a breathwork class, take a yoga class, first week is free at the yoga room. So just sign up and take a class.
Awesome. I'll add all of the links and all the ways to find you in the show notes. And yeah, thank you again. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please rate and review, and don't forget to subscribe. Learn more at enowellnesscollective.com and connect with us on Instagram at enowellnesscollective.